Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I just thought I'd give you a quick video of what I've been doing the last 6 months, and as you can probably see to the side here, this is what I have been doing. I built a replica or model of a stagecoach, a Concord Stagecoach, and they operate in America, Wild West. And you've seen it on movies, cowboy movies, and also over in Australia on the east coast, and there's one or two that run down the southwest of here. I'm not quite sure if the coach did run to the golf fields. I don't think so. About these coaches is I've seen pictures of them, at least 20 people. They used to have seats on top of here, and I've seen kids, adults, at least 20 people sitting on a coach, and inside there's enough room for 9 adults. So if we go a little bit closer, give you a run through on a few of the things that I've done to make this model. I must say that when the model makers wrote direction for building this model, they certainly did not put in everything what you wanted to know. You had to work out things yourself. So they will show a picture of this outside here, and they will tell you pretty quickly what you have to do. So you have to do it with your best ability. Some of the information was incorrect, but they tell you what type of glues to use, and that was a problem. The main glues that I did use on this was super glue and PVA glue, and the majority of it was done with a super glue. It was a model of super glue, and it worked very well, but you had to be very careful with it, especially when you're working with this canvas or this material here called napier. They call it napier when you're making things, because if you have a dot on the finger or your thumb or something there, and you latch onto this stuff, she don't come off. That'll tear off onto your finger. So yeah, that was one of the benefits. Anyway, but as I built the model, as I went through, I thought about things, and I look at what they had for information, and then I would sit there and think about what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, and then I'll go forwards and start building it, and sometimes doing it my own way. And for instance, if we can, I'll zoom in here and we'll talk about this little, here we are, this is what we're talking about, this little padlock, oh sorry, this sliding mechanism, all handmade, except for these little brackets here, or U-clamps, sorry, they supplied those, and but what they actually showing you the picture, what you're supposed to do is only one U-bolt, it's U-clamp, and it'll just slide there. So when you undone this will just flop around and look not right. So what I did is I made it twice as big, worked out, calculated what I need to open it, and then I put drilled a 1/2 mil hole into the brass, put a bit of 1/2 mil brass wire into there so it wouldn't go any further, forwards or backwards, and it stayed in that slot. And off I went. And of course, undone. It opens, close. And there you go. You can't open that. Anyway, while we're here, we'll just go into this a little bit. You can probably see it rocking around. We'll go into that a little bit later. Then we come to building, well, finishing off the interior. When I built this model, there was a lot of things that were wrong about this, because the calculations between that back, the other side door to this side door was alright to allow the length of this sitting here. But then once you put the cushion in, the cushioning here, this part here, onto there and onto the other side, it would touch. It would touch by 1/8 of an inch. So that's another thing. I'd already built the seat. I'd already made the cushions and all that to put on there. And I said, I'll just wait back and just make sure that it's going to work out alright, which is a good thing I did, because I didn't stick these cushions onto the wood. And also in the plans, they don't come like that, they swing up like this. They come in like that, which makes it very narrow for the ladies when they come to get into the stagecoach. Sit down, because you know what type of dresses they had. So if you swing that over, you can have a little bit more room to squeeze through there and so forth. So can you imagine 8 people in there? Whew. Okay, so it sort of gives you, in real sense, it would give you probably about another 4 inches for them to get through there and sit down, because all gentlemen and all the ladies will get the nice cushion seats and all that. They would sit in the middle. That was for the kids or the men. So I overcome that problem, no trouble at all, and you know, I put some hinges. I thought I cut, well, I got it here because I shortened all the cushions by 1/4 inch, because what I had seen on the internet that someone had put hinges in there for lifting so they can get back there, and I thought I'd do it because it made more sense that you can get this position for walking in there and all this, because it looks very tight here to get through, to sit down. Finish in there. If it wasn't for a video on the internet there that shows you how to do this, it were a person not connected with Artesania Latina model makers, he showed how he done it to a certain stage, and he got up to the stage that I think just before fitting the doors and all that. But so I was pretty lost afterwards, that because I had to follow the instructions were very, very poor English understanding. Talk about the materials more than about actually what happened, what you're supposed to do. For instance, if you, with the model you're supplied with a actual full-size picture of what's supposed to be everything on here, and one of the things, these curtains here, these drop-down curtains that they had in the day, okay, the model maker says you just glue it to the piece of wood, and I thought that's pretty rough. So what I did is I made this little, you can probably see it here. Oh, sorry, you won't be able to see it. I'll have to get that back up there. Okay. So here we are. You can see there, those little 90-degree bit of brass rod, and then I turned up some pieces of wood and then rolled this canvas stuff onto it. That's how that works. They don't wind down or anything like that. I glued them into place here so they don't wind down, otherwise it's a little bit untidy, and of course this stuff will start curling up on the corners. Then, you know, fitted straps and all this. But it's, you know, each article you think is so easy to make. Oh, I'll make the doors. But to make those doors, there was about 5 or 6 days each, about 4 hours a day doing it, just to make the door. Not including the hinges, not including the door lock mechanism. And, it was a big problem. And of course we live in Western Australia, and Western Australia is quite a wild state, or everything's got to come from over the eastern states, and I was lucky enough to be able to get the gold pen that you do all the markings around here, so forth, in this state, and that turned out quite alright. Then we'll move on to the boot now. I'll move it around. The builder boot, that took me about 10 days. Because there's a lot of framework inside there you have to do, and a lot of guessing around, and then add additional things which you won't be able to see on top, but I could probably lift it up to show you and see if I can hold it still and point to it. These extra straps here that I put in to make it look more authentic. There was a lot of scratch work and all this, and didn't really turn out the way I wanted to do. I was going to leave it so it'd open up, because all the interior inside that boot is been properly made, but you can't see it. Maybe one day I'll come back and visit it again, and I will make that so it opens. Of course, when I was doing the wheels, that's the first thing you do, is making the wheels. I made a jig, and I made this so it was perfect, and of course they were locating on these points here for location. So, but I could see that this wood here, the hole that goes for the axle, looked out of place. It was not central. Anyway, I span it on a piece of wood and said, oh, this has got to be joking. What I should have done, and I regret it I didn't do it, is I should have put a piece of softwood in there and re-drilled it centrally in my wood lathe, because it does run out a little bit. A couple of mil on the outside diameter, which is a pain in the bum, because I don't like that, and of course it's a little bit off like that, because the old days they would not have built a carriage wheel like that, so that was a bit of a failing. Okay, now when I built this coach, or when I fitted my coach to these strappings are not leather. You can see those are not leather, they are wood, and I thought, well, you can do, I couldn't find any leather that was going to do the job, and I dare say after a while that they would stretch and they will sit on the bottom. So I went with what they said, they're wood straps, and I think there's about 2 straps there, and it gives you an idea that it's like leather straps. The leather straps was there, so it gave it a little bit of a swaying motion. Now, that swaying motion wasn't, as you can see, it's moving around. I'll just give you a full picture of that. See, the body stays still and this moves around. Now, that wasn't made for the passenger's comfort. It was made for stop the stress movements on the horse. So Concord, when he did build these coaches, thought about the animals that were pulling it, not so much about the passengers. But it did work out for the passengers, which was a good thing. Of course, I built those, and you know, when you're building these things, you think, oh, gee whiz, is it going to fit? And then when you get finally to the situation where you can put the carriage on, the carriage box onto the chassis, there was a problem. We've got underneath here what is called a false bottom. and that false bottom you can't see it because of this beam I've got running through here, but it goes like that. It's a false bottom, and that was sitting on top of the chassis, and so all the weight from this, which is quite a heavy item, I would say at least a kilo of weight in that. It might be a kilo and a half, I might be wrong, because a lot of woodwork went into that, a lot of work. It was sitting on the chassis, so it was giving it a slight bend, and of course it wasn't working, and it was rocking like that. It didn't have any slight movement or anything like that, so I had to think about what I was going to do there. And so I come up with an idea that I could make a little beam. I wonder if I can get you a little bit closer for this one. And that little beam runs from there right through to there, and its thickest point is about 5 mil, and it had to follow the shape of the carriage all the way around there, so I can lift the carriage, the box, up off the chassis, and I finally got that done. And of course we get this movement and it's not touching the chassis, and it was a lot of work to do that. It was a very fine jig that I had to make, and then very fine routing, but it came out and I didn't lose my fingers. I was quite happy about that. And of course, putting this railing around here. Now, the model maker suggests that you do this section in 2 halves. And I see this bottom rail here. Okay, it was a big problem. I've already put a little video on YouTube that how I done this, and you probably all have watched. But what I did do is make up these little brass spaces and drill holes that way, and then cut the little posts, which are aluminium. Can't do much with aluminium, but super glue. But it's a bit better than what they wanted to do. They just wanted you to super glue that piece to that piece to each post, and that won't work. That would not work in a flying fit. These posts here were brass, which was lucky. So I was able to solder these rods here onto here, and likewise for over here, sorry, over the other side. I then contemplated how to do that, so I super glued them, all this in, so it made it pretty strong. Super glue is pretty good, strong. And of course I had the holes marked out. You've got to make sure the holes are marked out, and it took a lot of patience and skill to do that there. I think it took me about 2 weeks to do that, at least 2 weeks. All this brass work here I had to make up, everything here I had to make up, but they had supplied the posts, which was good, because that's been a lot of hard work extra. But I would have, all these little brass buckles I had to make. I think it was about 26 little buckles that I had to hand make, and then I had to solder them together, solder them so they looked apart, and that's what happens. Then I come to make the box. The box here is a strong box, and actually they show in the picture how to fit the hinges. So they had the hinges sitting on the inside. Now everybody knows you cannot fit hinges on the inside, because you'll never be able to open it. There was a lot of work there. I think that took about 2 days. That's right, it took me 2 days just to make that box. Now these here were pretty easy to make. The old gambler's suitcase, a bit tatty, and that's what I did. I made it look tatty, because that's what it's supposed to look like. And you're not finished your model until you've made all those, all handmade. Although they did supply the wood there, which is a good thing, that we'd find very hard as model makers to make. But we would have been able to do it, and that was laser cut. The wood was laser cut there, and of course for detail it was good and all this, but you had to add your own detail. I made a little bit of a mistake there when I was building this. As you can see, I've got the wood there and around there, and then I've got it sitting on top of here. Well, it should have been a little bit different than that. No, yeah, oh well. But that's alright, it's different. I'll do it my own way. Some of the things I was very surprised, like cutting these straps in this stuff here. If you've got the right gear, it's all good. You can, nice sharp scalpel and a steel rule. And you can, and using it proper way, both ways, use scalpel, you can really do a good clean cut, and that's what I managed to do. A bit hard to measure up your sizes, which was, these are 3mm, I think these were, yeah, I think they are, yep, they're 3mm straps, and you got to make them look all the same, because that's very hard if you try and measure up. So it's all eye work. Then we turn ourselves to the front. Oh, see if I can move this around. Now we come to the front. In the front, I think it took about 4 weeks to do, sitting on 4 hours a day. I've done a lot differently what they show in how to do it, which is okay. You know, there's a lot of things that is still a little bit wrong and all this. Anyway, fitting in the lights there, you can see they move around, but you've got to keep them like that. And you know, there's reasons for that. If you have any problems with the light or get the light off, you've got to take that top off. That top's not glued, so yeah, or unscrew it. Sorry, you got to pull it out like this. See if I can show you. Okay, you see that? And you're going to be able to put it back in there again. Because if you have to do any work with that globe that goes, that's it. And of course, I'll just show you in here. See the switch? On and off. 9-volt battery. See the lights on? Lights off. Nice little cover that goes in there. It just slips behind. And I'll just leave it like that so it's easy to take out. It was a good challenge for a 67-year-old. They give you the turntable slide, but they don't really give you anything else, so you have to work that out. So what I did is I rested it, the turntable would rest, because could you imagine if this hits a rock all the time? It doesn't take long. I'll see, I'll get you down. We'll move on to down here. This here would start to bounce in the good old days on the real coach. Well, you have to replicate that on your model too. It doesn't, they don't give you an idea. So I created a spring that rests on, so it takes out the wobble and all this, because if that pin there starts to wear, which would do over time, okay, this will start bouncing up and down. Before you know it, the front wheels, front section would break off, but that helped support it, that spring there. So they had a top and bottom, so it didn't bounce up and down, if you know what I mean. This you could imagine if it starts to wear there, which that pin will wear, that could happen. So but we'll move it around and talk about other things. I think we'll move on to the brakes. The brakes are a challenge. We'll set it up there. You can see that pretty good. Okay, the brakes are off. So what I couldn't understand, the driver sits up here, his arm would barely touch it here. Then he had to operate that with his hand on this one. And I actually have seen them on pictures of old stagecoaches back in the 1860s, 70s in America, with arms like that. But some of them had an extension on the arm, okay, and they would have it so, and it was further down this way, and then they have a peg coming out like that off the handbrake lever, and the bloke will use his foot to so that must have been an actual adjustment that they made later on, they found. Anyway, the model company says you don't put any leather, so I put leather because I found that the brakes weren't working very well. So when I put the leather on the shoes, which that's what they have leather on the shoes, okay, the braking action come really good. It didn't with me because I put the effort into making sure that it was going to be spot on. It was going to work because it's part of the model. Spending more time putting the effort into making it look good and actually how it would have worked in the day. The polish I put onto it was a French polish, okay, or I put about 5 or 6 layers of French polish on it, and no other polish over the top of it or anything as yet. A Stagecoach in those days, and if you see pictures of them, even those ones preserved in museums, they were actually working in the day. They were pretty well beat up a little bit, you know, worn pieces of wood. So I wanted to do this and all this, because I was thinking along stages there, how do you do this? How do you make it? Do you make it look like it's just out of the factory, or do you make it as if it's been used? So I'd rather, hopefully, that it looks like it's been used for about 2 or 3 days and it's still a little bit clean, you know, a bit of dusty looking appearance on it, a bit of wear marks and all this with, of course, do appear on it. But a bit of a challenge making these. They don't even give you a template, they don't give you an idea, they just give you a picture what it's supposed to look like. And of course a little bit of information and all this, but not really good information. It's a Spanish company, and the English is not second to none, I can tell you. Far from it. Anyway, some of the ideas that they get to do, you know, if you have never done this quality of model making, is very good. But about any model making is you have to put the effort in to get it spot on, or to a standard that you want, and that's what I've done. I've got it to a standard that I like. Authenticity, I try to go with that a lot more, because you know, you just don't make a model that's going to fall to bits or anything like that. Everything's got to work onto it. Doors got to work, they can't catch, got to have the right gaps. I do recommend that people are interested in doing this thing with a few tools. You might have to scab up around the place. You can certainly make all these things what I've done in there exactly the same, and you don't have to do it as quick as I did. But I'm one of those people, if I got something to do, I have to get it finished, because there might be a chance that I ever get back doing it again, because piles of other things have come up and this will get shelved away. So I made a great effort, just over 6 months to do, and I would say average 4 hours a day. Some days I spent 8 hours on it, 8 hours in the afternoon, and be 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning still working on it. That happened a lot, figuring out how to do things. Like, I don't know if you can see this little slot here. There's a slot here. You see that slot down there? How do you put that in? And then after that, when you paint it, you can't get that slot any paint in there. How do you do that? Well, you know, you apply yourself, you're surprised what you can do. But I haven't finished with this thing yet, a long way from it. I am going to carve 4 horses, that the horses are going to look real, and they're going to be modelled to that. And when I've done that, then I'm going to start on the people in there. And I'll tell you what, lots and lots of years I think I've got to go before I finish. So thanks very much for watching. And of course, when I've finished all this, I will put another video up to show you the horses as I progress on that. Don't forget, I've still got the dog, so I'm going to have a little bit of a lay off here, have a little bit of a break from any of this type of work, and when I do come back there I will finish off the dog. So the next video will be on Jerry June carving, as I get very close to finishing that. I haven't done any of it over the summer. I kept the wood out of the heat, kept in a cool area, so you know, stop any splitting, and that saves me a lot of work. There's a lot of things I've got to do with this dog yet. There's got to be colouring, natural colouring. I'll have to try and find out how to do. You know, bring out the whites in the woods, and that'll be done by bleaching and so forth. But anyway, I'm sure that I'll keep you all occupied with my videos to give you an idea, and maybe hopefully I can help you to start doing the things that I do, because especially when you're older, you've got to keep your mind active, and that's what I want to do. So all aboard as we go forward on this build, on this coach. I'm sure I can maybe help you to start building a model. Not necessarily one of these. My wife's even going to build the Bounty, Bly's little boat that when he was kicked off the ship that he sailed for 3,500 miles. I might build the Bounty on one of my next projects. We'll see what happens. Okay, catch you later. Please subscribe,